Today I'm going to be talking about the friendship between George Patton and Dwight Eisenhower. So George Patton had a rich and snobbish upbringing in San Gabriel, California, and that really never ceased to show in his personality. He was a boisterous man with his spendings as well as his attitudes towards his inferiors and sometimes his superiors. Dwight, or Ike Eisenhower, was born into a family relatively poor. He grew up in Abilene, Kansas, and he supported himself by working night shifts at a creamery. He was a man of integrity, humility, and hard work. Both men graduated from West Point, Patton in 1909 and Eisenhower in 1915. Being that they were 6 years apart, they didn't meet until after World War I. When they did meet in 1919, they immediately saw how their characters varied, but they both still respected each other. This respect for each other's qualities formed their friendship and perhaps more than once saved it. During the Depression, Patton, being as rich as he was, seemed unaffected by the wage cuts and economic measures on the army posts. Eisenhower, on the other hand, was constantly asking for assignments and wanting to join the troops. Eisenhower did not get these assignments, however, because General Douglas MacArthur liked the young major's hard-working and efficient mind around. In the following years, Patton's display of economic power, sure attitude, and military prowess moved him up to colonel. This was not a possible route for Eisenhower, so he had to take the slow train and move up from within. When the war started in Europe, Eisenhower was sure that his friend would be put at the top of the chain of command, so he sent Patton a letter asking for a position under him should the U.S. enter the war. Patton knew that he, being the fire-spirited hoorah type, would need someone to slow him down at times. He told Eisenhower that he would have this position in his ranks. Under Army Chief of Staff General Marshall, Patton rose all the way to Major General. When the U.S. officially entered the war in December of 1941, Marshall called Eisenhower to Washington. After just 6 months under Marshall, Major General Eisenhower was sent to command the European Theater of Operations in London. Then, in July of 1942, Eisenhower was appointed Supreme Commander of the invasion of French North Africa. He chose his old friend Patton as his leading assault commander for said invasion. Eisenhower then sent Patton to lead a force against the German-Italian forces occupying Sicily. Patton succeeded, and the Axis army was sent retreating. After a tough battle, Patton went to visit the injured troops to help raise the morale. Then he saw a man who had no physical injuries, but he had been diagnosed with psychoneurotic anxiety, or shell shock. Patton flew into a tantrum, calling him a yellow-bellied SOB, and declared that his cowardice was stinking up the hospital, which was a place of honor. Eisenhower received this report after Patton had successfully entered Messina, but still something had to be done. He regrettably threatened his friend, saying that if he didn't pull it together, he would have to relieve him of his duties. In the fall of 1943, Eisenhower received his assignment as Supreme Commander of Overlord. This was the invasion of Normandy, France. Eisenhower appointed Patton to be part of the invasion, as well as British officer Bernard Montgomery. One of Eisenhower's tasks for this operation was to keep these two men from patronizing each other. After a successful invasion of France, Patton went to a welcome club where he declared that Allied unity was of utmost importance, for it was clear that it was the destiny of Americans and British to rule the world. On May 1st, 1944, Eisenhower met with Patton, fully expecting to send him home, but dismissed Patton without having made a decision. 2 days later, Eisenhower decided that Patton was too valuable to lose and let him stay. This turned out to be a good decision, for Patton paid his dues. On July 30th, 1944, Patton, along with other Allied forces, swept across France, pushing the Germans back towards their own borders. On December 19th, 1944, Hitler launched his last offensive, and to the Allied surprise, was making considerable gains. Eisenhower put Montgomery and Patton on the job, and the German thrust was stopped by December 26th. In March of 1945, Patton and Montgomery arrived at the Rhine River. After Montgomery's meticulous preparations for a triumphant crossing into Germany, he learned that Patton, who had brought bridging equipment from Paris, as well as a naval detachment with a landing craft, was already on the other side. After the war ended, Patton was sympathetic towards the Nazis and said that joining the Nazi Party was no different than becoming Republican or Democrat. That was the last straw for Eisenhower, and he took Patton's army away from him. In December of 1945, Patton was on a hunting expedition and broke his neck in a car accident. 12 days later, he died.